All right, Life for Groups, welcome to week 1 of our spring study through the Gospel of John as we look at the 7 miraculous signs that John presents. And I'm excited about this first one as we see John record Jesus' first miracle that he performs in front of the disciples to reveal his glory. And it's an amazing event. We see that it takes place at a wedding. By now, if you haven't, go ahead and read through this story just to begin to think about it. And I'll just kind of walk through a few points that we see here. And I love this. On the third day, it says that Jesus and his disciples were at a wedding. Now, we think of being at a wedding as maybe an afternoon event, or depending on where it is, it might take a day. But in Jesus' day, a wedding was a big community event that often lasted a week at least. And so it was something that people had to take off, to go away from their normal responsibilities, and they spent time. You had to dedicate time away, and it was a big celebration. There was a lot of wine, there was a lot of singing, there was a lot of joyful response to this event. And so just the fact that Jesus, who is busy, I mean, he was here on a mission. He's going to save the world. But Jesus takes a week to spend time with a couple that he loves. We don't know the couple's name. We don't know really anything about them, but he spends time with them. Just shows Jesus' heart for people. And yet, while they're at this wedding, a major event occurs. We see Mary, Jesus' mother, come to Jesus and say, hey, they've ran out of wine. Now, in our day, that we might be thinking, okay, that's not that big of a deal, so what? You run out of wine, drink something else. But in that day, to run out of wine at a wedding would cause great embarrassment, both for the couple and the head of the ceremony. We don't know if Mary's the head of the ceremony, but she plays a part. She's very close with this couple. And if this happens, if this gets known to the rest of the people who are in attendance, this is a great embarrassment. And it's important to see the connection with wine here, because the wine is not just significant for the event, but wine is also a symbol for the coming of the Messiah. I don't know if you were with us last semester we studied through Amos, but towards the end and the last chapter of the book of Amos, as he's presenting a picture of the world to come with the Messiah, he says the hills will just drip with sweet wine. That wine, just the ability to have wine at your leisure, is a symbol, is a sign that the Messiah has come. And so here they're out of wine. And so Mary turns to Jesus. And Jesus' response at first may seem kind of flippant, like, what's this have to do with me? What does this have to do with us? And Mary doesn't say anything. She just turns to the servants to say, she tells them, do what he tells you. And so she goes and he instructs the servants to take 6 purification jars, these 6 stone jars that were used for Jewish purification, and the servants obey completely. I want you to think about that as we get into the lesson, just the role of obedience that comes as we read through this story. But Jesus tells them to take 6 stone jars, and we read that these jars were used for Jewish rites of purification. I've always wondered, why these jars? They're probably not sanitary. If people are washing their hands or washing themselves in these jars, then these jars are going to be dirty and nasty, and the last thing I'd want to do is drink out of them. But Jesus uses these jars very specifically, because these jars symbolize what he has come to do. He's going to take these 6 jars used for Jewish purification, and typically they're just filled with water. But he's going to transform it to wine. And that shows us that the Jewish Old Testament law, the only thing that it could really do was show us that we need to be cleaned. But that's it. The Old Testament law could never really produce life. That's what Paul teaches in Romans and Galatians. But here, Jesus takes and he fulfills the Old Testament law perfectly, and here he creates wine, something that represents joy and life. So here he symbolizes what he's about to accomplish. He's going to do something that really the Old Testament law could never do, produce life in those who trust and obey. It's an amazing sign, and we see that this sign ultimately leads to the belief and the faith of the disciples. And I love this sign as well because this is Jesus' first miracle. This is the miracle that John presents first. And it's the first miracle of Jesus' ministry. And you think about the next thing that we're about to experience as believers, the things that we're waiting for. See, Jesus' first miracle takes place at a wedding where he produces wine. And as believers now, we're waiting for Jesus to come and to take us to be with himself. And the first thing that we experience with him there is a wedding, the marriage supper of the Lamb, where Jesus will once again partake of new wine. And so it's just a symbol of what he is doing on earth, what he has done, and it's also a sign of what is to come. So that's it for this first lesson, and I hope that you're able to get a lot out of the study tonight. We've got a lot more to come, and so I'm praying for you guys. Love you very much, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.